This is Scott Cawthon. You probably know him as the spooky animatronics guy. But long before this man was exporting animatronic scares to your computer screen, his main product was belief. You could fuel a spirit bomb with this man's early career. And it does look a little weird. The people saying it looks like scary animatronics, that's a little mean. Doesn't look that bad. But I think these videos are actually more interesting than FNaF is. You get to know more lore about the man Scott Cawthon from this than anything FNaF related. Let's just say Scott Cawthon's a religious man with a religious plan. And I think you'll be relieved to know that once those souls leave those animatronics, they're going right to heaven. Except Balloon Boy though. He's just a dumb robot. But a lot of the stuff Scott Cawthon made before FNaF was religious stuff. And it's pretty interesting actually. Like take Bible plays. This thing is confusing. Like it's called Bible play, but it isn't a play. I'll just let them explain it.
Hi there, and welcome to Bible Plays. In just a few minutes, you'll get to watch my theater class rehearse for a play of a famous Bible story. My name is Donovan, and let me introduce my class to you. This is Ian.
Hi there.
Braden.
Hello.
Kevin. I'm sure he'll be here soon. And Hannah.
The show's called Bible Plays, but it's not the play, it's the rehearsal? Why couldn't we just see the play? I guess if we saw the play, we wouldn't have super humorous moments like this.
Okay, all we need now is our Goliath. Where's Kevin? 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 We really need Kevin. We need 3 people. We really need 3. We need 3 people for this story. We really need Kevin. We need 3 people. We can't do it with just 2. We really need 3. We really do. We need 3.
These videos are freaking heaping helpings of awkward. Well, you can tell he's having fun. It's so genuine. You can't help but laugh at the utter awkward incompetence. And it's wholesome as hell. He even got his sons to play the 2 kids. It's like Fast and the Furious, man. You got family. And it did make me chuckle a couple of times. Like when the donkey appears for no reason because it reminded me of that SpongeBob clip.
I feel like a big jerk.
Or like Kevin. He doesn't show up in the first thing, you think that's the joke. Oh, he's the guy who doesn't show up to theater class, you know, whatever. But then in the second episode, this happens.
And starring Hannah as the person behind the scenes making all the stuff fall down.
The Hannah's been over there.
Then who's been working the props?
Glad I could help. See you guys next time. It's Kevin.
Kevin?
Kevin?
He's already gone.
Like, it's dumb, but it made me laugh the first time I heard it, so, you know, whatever. And that's really all it is semi-humorous segments explaining certain Bible stories. And they do it pretty well, actually. It's no VeggieTales, but if you want to teach these stories, like, I don't think this is a bad tool for that. It only sometimes gets sidetracked by strange humor, but there's nothing inherently wrong with it. But this doesn't even compare in scope to Scott Cawthon's most ambitious project, The Pilgrim's Progress, an 8-part series.
My name is Christian.
Christian! Christian! It's the river of death. We must go through. There's no other way around.
The Pilgrim's Progress is a theological fiction book published by John Bunyan in 1678, and it's regarded as one of the most significant pieces of theological fiction. It's up there with Dante's Inferno. It follows a man named Christian, who has a revelation from God that due to overwhelming sin, his city is marked for destruction. In fact, the city he comes from is literally named Destruction.
That is where I lived. The city of destruction.
This book is a little on the nose. But basically all this is Christian goes on an adventure to try to find a way to reconcile the guilt over his sin with himself and his sin with God. Here are some fun things that the Scott Cawthon version does. You know that scene from Neverending Story when the horse can't get out of the swamp because it's too sad or whatever? Almost the exact scene happens in this with Christian because his sin is weighing down in the water and he can't go through it.
My burden. I can feel it. My sins are sinking me to the bottom. I can't escape. No, Christian, your burden is gone.
But then I realized that this is based off of a book from 1678, so actually Neverending Story copied it. This scene where they fall down the hill is hilarious.
Whoa!
The monsters in this actually look pretty cool, and they do have a kind of animatronic feel to them. There's a demon in this that looks frickin' rad.
To you now. Let's make the most of it, shall we?
You can't hate when a skeleton's got a top hat. But other than that, this is a pretty run-of-the-mill telling of the story. But it does have that awkward charm that a lot of the older Scott Cawthon stuff has. And really the biggest problem with it is the quality. I had to find an upscaled version. The one on Scott's YouTube channel looks like this. You can't be watching it all in one sitting or your eyes are gonna hurt. But Scott Cawthon did make a companion game to this. Of the same name, Pilgrim's Progress is a faith-based side-scrolling RPG. But what any FNaF fan should see immediately is that this is literally FNaF World, down to the way that characters shake back and forth in idle animation. Anyone that was surprised when FNaF World came out obviously didn't see any of this. But Pilgrim's Progress is really just a run-of-the-mill RPG, except instead of like punching people, you like pray at them. It's not the best RPG I've ever played, but it's not the worst I've ever played. If you want to check it out, I'd say whatever. It's not bad. We got more stuff to look at, but for right now, I want to take a look at all the forgotten stuff. And I say that because Scott hasn't posted these anywhere, or he lost them. He actually said that. He lost them. So we're gonna go rapid fire using this list I found. I'm gonna start with the videos. Bird Village the movie. I think my initial reaction sums it up perfectly. What's happening? What's the point of this? Bird Village 2, 3, and 5 are lost. The Lost Media Wiki says they found 2 of them, but provide no links to where they are, so it doesn't really help me. In Bird Village Beak Snowball Fight, they have a snowball fight that makes my eyes hurt. A Mushnail Tale is weird. It's really weird. But Return to Mushnail is about a mushroom ninja fighting off a alien, they look like truffles maybe? A truffle invasion? And he's to save the world. It's 45 minutes. Noah's Ark, Story of the Biblical Flood, is Noah's Ark. Not really much more to say. It's almost an hour long. A Christmas Journey About the Blessing God Gives is about some kids learning the frickin' spirit of Christmas or whatever. Christmas Symbols is about a smooth-talking candy cane named Cornelius, and I think the video sums itself up perfectly.
Now I know what you're thinking. A talking candy cane? How silly and unnecessary.
Luckily, it's only 2 minutes. The Rock and Learn series isn't really his, but he was the animator for it. For a pretty short period of time, and they're still making things today. But that's really it. Kids rock and learn. The Jesus Kids Club teaches the idea of love thy neighbor and Jesus' love for humanity through cupcakes. It's whatever. Doofus the Dinosaur is about a dinosaur collecting coins. It's not very good. I think this comment I found summed it up perfectly. And let's just get this out of the way at the beginning. These are all the games that are lost and or mobile games which I'm not going to review. You can pause if you want to look over all of these. This is the new list in chronological order with all those other things removed. The Fifth Paradox is an RPG, and it's not amazing. My favorite part though is that your character carries his sword in his bed in the opening cutscene. That's my favorite part about the whole thing. Also, it doesn't help that this is the resolution it's in. Makes it a little difficult to play. Stellar Gunner is actually pretty fun. It's a pretty normal space shooter. I like the aiming system, the bosses look cool, and the game is actually pretty difficult once you get to the higher stages. This is probably the first one I'd actually recommend playing. And the game's pretty short, there only being 7 stages. So if you like space shooters, check it out. It's also in like human resolution so you can actually see it, so that's good. Legacy of Flan 1 through 5 are also RPGs. Scott just really loves RPGs. Sadly, a couple of these games were online, so they don't work anymore because no one's hosting servers. Only the first 2 games really work because they're not online. But I don't know, I guess the text crawl made me laugh. In the beginning, there was Flan. That's about it. Flanville 1 and 2 just don't work. They just don't. And what a shame. Based on this opening screen, I wanted to play it. Very tragic. Junkyard Apocalypse is like a Mega Man-esque shooter, but the controls are just terrible. I'd say skip this one. Moon Minions is another RPG. It's pretty boring and repetitive. The only thing that's kind of cool is the inventory idea of being able to absorb new weapons and stuff like that, but it's not great. Metroid Rip Worlds is a Metroid fan game, but it's impossible for one very simple reason. You can't angle your gun. You can do it in the real Metroid, which makes the game actually playable, opposed to this one. This blows. And the weird thing is, in Junkyard Apocalypse you could angle the gun, and that came before this. So I got no clue why you can't do it in this game. Legend of the White Whale is related to Mush Snail Tail somehow. I'm not really sure. It might just be the same characters. And it does have a baller-ass menu screen. As for the game, though, I'll just explain to you the first problem I had. You see that right there? That was a text box. It literally appeared for one single frame. And you might say, Sean, why'd it do that? Well, this game has a problem, because you use the arrow keys to walk, but any input will skip dialogue. And since you're walking and don't know when the text is going to show up, you're always going to skip it because you'll never know when it's going to appear. And not to sound rude, but how the hell did he let this happen? Like, did he even playtest the game? I feel like it's almost impossible to not run into this problem. And the game looks good. It might be great, but because of this problem, I have no clue what to do. Chup's Quest might be one of the worst games I've ever played. Your hits feel like they do nothing, you have to get in way too close to do them, and it makes my eyes hurt. I think it's pretty apropos that a giant piece of shit seems to be the most powerful enemy in this game. The Misadventures of Siegfried the Dark Elf on Tuesday Night is probably my second favorite game I've played out of all these. It's an extremely simple 2D platformer with like RPG elements, of course. And you can get power-ups and you have to fight enemies and do platforming. It's actually pretty fun. One of the things I noticed immediately, though, is that the main character looks like that vampire from Sister Location. This isn't a masterpiece, but if you want some mindless, platforming, button mashing fun, this game is actually pretty good. Bogart 1 and 2 are very similar to Siegfried the Dark Elf, but something's missing. For one, you can't not use an item. The second you pick up an item, it'll replace your main attack. Also, shift is jump in this game, which I've never seen anywhere. Bogart 2 does fix a lot of these problems, like adding a special weapons button so your main attack isn't replaced every time you pick up an item. And while shift is still jump, everything feels more refined in Bogart 2. Both of these games are obviously Scott's attempt at making a Castlevania-type game. The main character even uses a whip, but Bogart 2 is actually not bad. It's a semi-mindless button masher, but it's not bad. If you want to play either of these games, play Bogart 2. Bogart 2 is way better than the first one. Moon kind of feels like if Metroid met Mega Man. It's not very good. Everything feels kind of floaty. The only thing I can really say about this game is, am I crazy for thinking that the drill button would drill? But no, it doesn't. Shooting breaks blocks. But not all blocks. But you're never going to be able to know which is a breakable block and which is a non-breakable block because all of them are the exact same. It's not great. Also, look at this. Another wall guy. Blatant reuse of ideas. A little sus. Game's gotta have a wall pop out guy. The Desolate Room stars the same character from the Desolate Hope, Coffee, and this game is way too slow. I'm walking and trying to find those eggs from my boy Alphys, and it takes 40 years. This game is way too slow for its own good. It's pulling me out of the experience. It's making me sleepy and I can't finish it. Iffermoon, besides having the strangest name I've ever heard, is an RPG. It's also a sequel to Dinostra, a game that at the time of recording this is lost. And this game is incomprehensible because the way the game looks during battles. Like, what is happening here? People are exploding, teleporting around, you can't tell what's going on. And then you walk around for 45 minutes. If the game was constant battles from the beginning, it might be charming, but the walking around kills this game. It goes from crazy to just crazy boring. If this sounds or looks interesting to you, maybe play it, but I'm not going to. Powermon is obviously supposed to be a parody of Pokemon, but I don't know if it's supposed to be comedic or criticizing the game. The thing is, Powermon is super tedious. Battles seem to go on forever with not too much happening, to the point where I just get bored. So it's actually pretty faithful to Pokemon. Doomsday Picnic RPG isn't really an RPG. It's basically just Siegfried the Elf again. The first boss might be the easiest boss I've ever seen. It's almost like Scott can only have one idea for like a 5-year period, so he makes a bunch of games that are exactly the same. Maybe that's why he was able to make 6 games in 4 years. There is no pause button is probably Scott's most unique game. The concept of the game is simple. You gotta parkour through the level without being able to stop. And as the title says, there's no pause button. The second you go, you're going. There are 2 different game modes and 4 difficulties. Mad Dash, you only got 1 life, and when you die, everything resets. All the arcade mode basically does is just give you a bunch more lives. You'll still die a bunch, but you know, the game won't end, you won't have to reset. I actually like this game a lot. This is probably my favorite Scott Cawthon game. You also gotta remember that Scott re-released this game as a troll when he said that someone hacked him and released FNaF 3 early. It's the exact same game, but Scott's character has Freddy's face over it. Also, you can't play the Mad Dash game mode, so you're gonna have 100 lives. The weirdest part about this game, though, is that when you open it, it gives you the option to turn off the music, and if you do, it'll only shut off for the first level. After you hit level 2, the music will turn back on. I don't know why it does that. This game's pretty good, though. Fart Hotel is weird. It makes me uncomfortable. I don't want to talk about it. You gotta guess who farted based on their facial expressions. It's like the LA noir of farting. It's actually pretty hard, and there's probably some sick, twisted individual out there who's hard too. Sit and Survive was originally a mobile game, so I thought I wasn't going to talk about it, but then I remembered. This game was also re-released as a FNaF troll.
Hey guys, I wanted to let everyone know what I've decided, and it's just a warning. A lot of you aren't going to be happy about it, but please try to understand. Ever since I started making games, I wanted to be a world builder. I never wanted to make gimmicky games or things that didn't mean something. I wanted to create experiences that would really have an impact on people. I feel like I got to do that with the first few games, but somehow I feel like I let myself get too dark with this one. Things went sideways, and I look at this game now, and I'm unsure of how it will affect people. This might be a really mature stream. We just have no idea.
What
Literally,
we're getting into.
Jason has not previewed it.
I'm digging the music.
Yeah, let's do this, man.
And legitimately, I've been excited about this relocation, you know, because this was a year in the making. Here it is. This is a preview of it.
Okay, so the new... Yeah, cool.
Wait,
all right.
Are you kidding me?
It's a good game. It's your classic, you know, idle management type game. You gotta buy your resources to try to survive the night. Whether it's a bug net to fight off bugs, an umbrella to fight off water, or a snake trap to fight off venom. It's actually pretty fun. It's pretty mindless, but, you know, it's a mobile game, so like, what do you expect? That's all the games. We still got 2 more to look into. We're gonna look into the Desolate Hope and Chipper & Sons Lovers Company in more detail, but I gotta take a nap quick. I'm tired, boss. Be right back in a jiffy. I love this game. Whether you want to talk about visuals, or story, or even gameplay, I think this game knocks it out of the park on all of those. And just try to tell me that isn't Freddy Fazbear right there. I think we're seeing some crossover. And I love the cerebral plot of this game. It comes out the gate swinging. Talking about the end of humanity, will you be remembered? What makes an existence meaningful? What gives life purpose? You will never know that you existed, but you did. This opening text crawl at the start of the game sets the tone perfectly for what you're about to experience. The character we control, Coffee, is basically a cyber janitor, so instead of like mopping the floor, he cleans up viruses and stuff. He's like Norton. This game is very simulation heavy. You're never really gonna know exactly what's real, but on a far distant planet, there's a completely AI-operated research outpost called Loon Infus. It's run by 5 different AIs running simulations constantly for some unknown reason. And our character, Coffee, has to venture into these simulations to fight a virus that has recently appeared. And this is really where you get dropped into the first segment of gameplay. But before I do that, I just want to say something. Walking down this hallway is delightful. I don't know what it is, maybe it's the animation, but something like just walking down this hallway feels so satisfying. But back to the gameplay. In this section of the game, it's a run-and-gun platformer shooter. It reminds me a lot of some other games he's made, but like a way better, more refined version. And really what you do is go through the level, killing enemies and collecting basically Mario coins, but they're computer chips. But really the entire goal of this section is to get as much money as you can to buy upgrades and buffs that you will use in the RPG segments when you fight the virus in every simulation. The only thing I really don't like about this part of the game is that you have to hold the jump button all the way through the jump, or else it'll stop in the middle of the jump, which can really mess you up on some of the platforming. In every level, you'll find one of these red computers that, when interacted with, will send you to this cool green Atari top-down kind of shooter place that's basically just a farm for money. But it's really charming looking, and it's very fun, actually. It's also some Inception shit, 'cause it's a simulation within a simulation. But once you got all your money stored up and all your upgrades bought, you're gonna want to find this glowing orb. But once you go over to it and interact with it, it'll trigger an RPG battle. Virus is moving to intercept. And then this animation, which I just freaking love. It's so hype. It's like the Power Rangers theme. And can we just talk for a second about this view? This looks so cool. FNaF World should have looked like this. It reminds me a lot of Earthbound with the front-facing view of the enemy. This game actually functions very similar to FNaF World. It's not really a turn-based RPG. The enemy can hit you at any time, he just has to charge his attacks up. But in this game, instead of like Magicka, you have charge because you're robots. So sometimes you're gonna have to dedicate some time to charge up your robots, which will leave them unable to attack. The more you charge up, the more powerful attacks you can use. And some of these are just so creative. Like look at this one where you need to target shoot to get buffs. The better you do, the more bonuses you get. This game rewards a good ability to multitask. There's so many cool and unique attacks and abilities in this game, I could spend an hour talking about all of them. But I like this game so much that I really want you to play it. So for the sake of that, that's as far as I'm going to go into the individual attacks. But when the boss attacks, your view shifts into this really kind of trippy camera panning shot. It's so cool, I love it. And the characters do fill the classic roles of an RPG, like there's the healer, the mage, the melee, the support, and everything comes together so well. And when you finally defeat a boss, it's beyond satisfying. I really love their death animations. It's an epic conclusion to an epic battle. It really feels like a triumph. But then you have a question. None of my guys leveled up after the battle. What's up with that? And this gets into my favorite part of the game, the night cycle. There's a day and night timer in the upper right corner of the game at all times. You can only go in the simulations during the day, and when it turns night, it'll kick you out of it, sending you back to the overworld. At night, Coffee is able to explore the surface of the planet. Apparently it gets too hot during the day. And as you walk, the moon rises. And the music swells. I'd play it, but it's copyrighted. I'm sorry. It's such a vibe. It's awesome. I would literally make this my desktop background. But this is actually where you level up your characters. You see those little sparkles over there? Those are items. You can only carry 2 at a time. But if you bring those back to the research station, all the robots have items that they want, and if you give them to them, they'll level up. And I really like the implications of some of the things they say. It's almost like you're not actually leveling them up. They just decide to care more. Like this one. A small toy, an image of times past and memories forgotten. I appreciate this and will pay more attention to your efforts. It's like they just didn't care before. It's such a tiny detail, I just love it. It's so robot. But overall, this game's a vibe, man. It's got sick-ass music, it's got sick-ass visuals, it's got sick-ass story. This MFer is like a hospital with how sick it is. Overall, this is probably my favorite game Scott Cawthon has ever made. And it's a real shame it doesn't seem to get any recognition. FNaF has completely overshadowed this game. And it's really sad because this game is so much more creative, so much more real, so much more feeling and thought is put into this game than the first FNaF game. It's just FNaF 1 took off and this one didn't. If anything I explained about the game interests you at all, please go play it. It's 100% worth your time. And even if you just like FNaF's intricate story, or the creative ideas portrayed, in-depth, very fun game mechanics, it's got all of those. But what this game has even more of is heart. This game has an extreme genuine feeling, and you can tell Scott loved every minute of making it. And hey, it's free on Steam. It couldn't hurt to try it out. I think you'll enjoy it. I certainly did. Chipper & Sons Lumber Company is, as the French say, goofy air. When people dunk on Scott's early animations saying they look like animatronics, it's this game they're talking about. And granted, they're right. Like that guy right there is supposed to be your father, but he's totally got an endoskeleton under his skin. It also doesn't help that the son, like, moves back and forth in idle animation, but the dad is dead still. He's been dead for 40 years. He's like one of those Buddhist monks that get themselves put into a statue. But as the title would suggest, Chipper and Sons run a lumber company. But the game starts with a father-son spat. Your dad's about to throw you out the house if you don't start working for his lumber company. Giving him the good old boomer speech. And then he has a war flashback. And Tyke's got a face on like he knows that when dad gets like this, he starts drinking and throwing things. So Tyke's job is pretty simple. Water trees, watch them grow, then cut them down. But boy's got it easy. By the time dad was his age, he was blowing up termite mounds. Which sounds a little terroristic, to be honest. But this game's a waiting game. If you want a game that's main component is watering, you're gonna have to play this game. You'll be loving it. But for me, it's making me sleepy. The numbers go up so slow. It makes me feel like I'm actually watching the second hand on a clock. So this game is your classic tycoon. You're building up an empire, a logging empire. Greta Thunberg's pissed. You can get automated robots, but here's my strat. Go to a tree, stand by it, and go make some food. And just wait for that number to go all the way up to the maximum. Once you got your 10,000 level tree, cut that powerful beast down and reap in all of its money. Buy yourself a level 2 lumber bot, and then take a crab on a date. She blows it on the first joke, and he's out of there. Wake up the next morning, cut some more trees. Eat, sleep, lumber, repeat. And we also learn more about our father's terrorist activities. He dropped a bomb right down in the middle of it. Oh boy, there were some mothers crying that day. What a kidder. Bro, Chipper's attacks have like Wikipedia articles about them. And at the end of the day, this game is your average tycoon. The dialogue's pretty sharp, the characters are funny, the backgrounds look pretty good, but once it gets going, it gets going. It's pretty good. But the characters do look like the robots. Like if you stood the dad up against a lumber bot, they look exactly the same. But this game's fun. It feels like a mobile game, and it is. So everything makes sense. And if you want to play it, you can download it straight from Scott Cawthon's official GameJolt account. It's not a game that you're going to be able to complete in one sitting. Just know that. So, after all that, I bet you have a question. Does any of this actually relate to FNaF? Well, sadly, as I went deeper into all these games and animations he's made, I realized they really don't, which just makes FNaF more confusing. Cause in retrospect, you're like, yeah, Scott Cawthon made FNaF, but like after going through all these games, I can't believe Scott Cawthon made FNaF. It's so unlike anything he's ever made. And I don't mean this like an insult, but maybe that's why it was so successful. And if you want to look on the games front, almost every game Scott made before FNaF feels like another game he already made. His early career is just polluted with so much sameness. All of his 2D shooters feel like his other 2D shooters. All of his RPGs feel like all of his other RPGs. FNaF was a brave step into the unknown. That came at just the perfect time. And it's very interesting to look over the past work of a man who's so successful now. You can see the gears spinning, you can see the wires getting connected, but they're not fully there. Going through all of Scott's games feels like a journey, and it seems like it was a journey for him as well. Constantly refining himself, getting better, making new ideas, having inspiration, pushing through game after game, even if the game didn't get you a lot of success. Just trying and trying and trying and never giving up. This man's got work ethic, and I think it's pretty inspirational actually. Because we've all had something that we made that we're not proud of. So when the day comes that you fall or fail, you gotta think, would Scott Cawthon give up? You know damn well he wouldn't. The dude's got a movie coming out, all stemming from a simple internet horror game. Anything is possible. So if there's one thing to learn from Scott Cawthon, don't be afraid to take risks and never give up. Because you never know when you're about to strike gold. Hey yo, gamer, subscribe.